Congrats on making it this far into the course. This here is the final type of question that we're going to be discussing. In this video, we're going to talk about the pick from list question, in which you'll have a question and you'll have to choose 2 or 3 different answer choices as the correct answer choices for your given question. So here we go. This is what this question looks like. This question is not in order, and as indicated by the red dot over here, this is a difficult question. So a pick from the list question is going to ask you to choose either 2 or sometimes 3 answer choices from the given options. In this case, you only have to choose 2 correct answers. And also, I want you to take note that when it says choose 2 letters, those 2 letters are going to be the answer choices for 2 separate questions. So in this case, one of the answer choices you can put for question number 11, and the other correct answer choice you have to put in for question number 12. The order of the answer choices doesn't really matter. As long as you choose the 2 correct answers, it doesn't matter in which order you answer them. Let's go over a bit of explanation for this question type. So as you know, this question is not in order, and it's a very challenging question. This is perhaps the most challenging question that you're going to see on the reading test, so definitely save this one for the end. Do this question last so that you get a chance to familiarize yourself with what the passage is about. Okay, so once you have a better understanding of the passage, it's going to be much easier for you to answer this question type. Okay, now when you start to scan for the keywords from this question, what you have to do is first, you have to scan for the main keywords that come from the question. So the question is going to be asking you for some very specific information, and you have to be able to locate language, synonym language that talks about that specific information that somehow relates to that specific information. Once you have located that area in which you think it's going to talk about the specific information that you're looking for, after that, you should start to search for the keywords from the answer choices. Okay, so first, you should search for the specific information, synonym language that talks about the specific information from the question. And then once you have located that area when you think that is going to talk about the specific information that you're looking for, then you should try to target down on the keywords from the answer choices and see if you can find any synonym language from the answer choices. We'll cover this in more detail very soon. Next, you need to know that the answer to the question may be found in one paragraph or in multiple paragraphs. Most of the times, you're going to be finding the answer to the question in multiple paragraphs. So for example, if there are 2 different answer choices, then you might find one answer choice in one paragraph, and you might find the next answer choice in a completely different paragraph. Next, you need to know that some information that is presented in the answer choices may not exist. So the answer choice may talk about certain ideas that are not even mentioned in the reading passage. Next, you must be able to scan the passage. We've talked about this for every question type that we've discussed so far. This is an absolutely essential skill to getting a high score on the reading section. So you have to be able to scan the passage, and you have to be able to understand synonym language. Lastly, just like every other question type, this question is also going to be formed from only 1 to 2 sentences in the reading passage. So what I mean by that is that, let's say if you have 2 different answer choices that you are looking for. So you might find one answer choice in one paragraph and the other answer choice in a different paragraph. Well, in each one of those paragraphs, the answer choices are going to come from only 1 to 2 sentences. So you might find one sentence that talks about your answer choice in one paragraph, and you might find another sentence or another 1 to 2 sentences in the next paragraph. Okay? Great. Now let's talk about the basic strategy. So the first thing that you have to do is you have to underline or circle the keywords in these questions and then leave them alone. Okay? We're going to leave them for last after marking the keywords. Now, one thing to pay attention to is which keywords you're going to be marking. In most cases, you're going to be marking the keywords from the questions. If you want, you can also mark the keywords from the answer choices, especially if you happen to find proper nouns or numbers or dates. In that case, it can make sense to also mark the keywords from the answer choices. But I want you to be careful because it can be easy to waste time when you start to look for keywords from the answer choices, because like I mentioned before, some of these answer choices may not even exist. Okay? So that's why most of the times you should be focusing on the keywords from the questions. The questions are going to be asking you for some very specific information, so you should keep an eye out for these keywords from the questions and synonym language that talks about the specific information that the question is asking you for. Now, once you have finished marking these keywords, you can simply move on to the next step, which is leave them alone and go and do the other easy questions first. So questions that are easier and questions that are in order, like fill in the blank, multiple choice, and so on, do those questions first. Remember, our goal here is to answer as many questions correctly as possible. So always save the difficult questions for the end and do the easy questions first. While you are answering these easy questions, what you have to do is you have to keep an eye out, okay? Be on the lookout for keywords that you have marked in the question in step number 1. So be on the lookout for these keywords from the questions while you are looking for the answers to the easy questions. And if you happen to come across keywords or synonym language from the question, then just go ahead and mark them so that you can easily identify them when you do return back to these questions at the end. So you're going to mark the keywords, do the easy questions first, then you're going to be on the lookout for these keywords and synonym language from these questions, and you're going to mark them if you find any keywords and synonym language. And once you have finished answering all of the easy questions, once you're done with that, after that, you are going to return back to these pick from list questions. So do the easy questions first, and once you're done with them, return back to these difficult questions at the end of the reading passage. Finally, what you're going to do is you will start by answering the questions for which you have already found the keywords. So remember when you were looking for the keywords while answering the easy questions? Maybe you ended up finding some keywords from these questions. Well, if you did find these keywords and you marked those keywords, when you return back to these questions, when you return back to these pick from list questions, you should start off by answering the questions for which you have already found the keywords, the synonym language, and so on. Okay? So start there because those are going to be the easiest questions for you to answer. Okay, now let me take you through some examples of how exactly to answer these questions. Here we go. We're going to be looking at this question for our example. So this is actually just one question, but actually we have two different answer choices for this question. So in this case, the question says, which two of these advantages of online social networking are mentioned in reading passage number 3. So what I want you to take note of here is this part over here. What are we really focusing on? We are focusing on advantages. That is the specific information that this question is asking us for. So here is how we're going to be answering this question. The first thing that you have to do is you have to pay attention to how many answers you will have to write for this question. Here it tells us we have to choose 2 letters. So both of these letters, and by letters they mean answer choices from A through E, 2 of these answer choices are going to be correct. We have to choose 2 of these letters and answer them separately. Okay, separately. That means 1 letter per question. So we're going to choose 1 letter for question number 18 and 1 letter for question number 19. The order doesn't matter. It can be in any order as long as they are the correct answer choices. Next, you are going to mark the keywords from the question. Mark the keyword that is asking you for the specific information. In this case, we are looking specifically for advantages. This is the keyword that I'm going to be looking for in my reading passage when I'm answering the easy questions first. I'm going to be looking for any language that talks about some sort of a benefit or some sort of an advantage. Note that these keywords from the question are likely going to be more useful than keywords in the answer choices. Most of the times, these keywords from the questions will be more helpful to you. Because like I mentioned before, some of these answer choices may not even exist. The only time where it would probably make sense to mark keywords from the answer choices would be if you have proper nouns, names, numbers, dates, and so on. Then it can be helpful to mark the keywords from the answer choices. But in the beginning, what I would do is if I have this question in a reading passage, I would only mark the keyword from the question and then I would leave it alone. I don't want to mark keywords from the answer choices and then have all of these keywords in the back of my mind while I'm looking for the answer to the easy questions first. That's going to be too much information for me to handle. So I'm not really going to do that. I'm only going to focus on the main keyword from the question. So these keywords are going to be more useful for you in most situations. So what you have to do is just underline or circle these keywords and then leave these questions for last, for the end of your reading passage. Whichever reading passage this question appears in, you have to leave it for the end of that reading passage. And then you're going to go and finish the easy in order questions first, and then you're going to return back to these questions at the end. Take note that some of these keywords are not going to be helpful. For example, this particular question comes from a reading passage that talks about online social networking. Well, if the whole reading passage is going to be about online social networking, then this keyword is not really going to help us. This is a repetitive keyword, so it's not very useful. So for that reason, I'm not going to mark this keyword. So once you've marked this keyword, leave it alone, do the easy questions first, and then when you return back to these questions at the end of your reading passage, then you should start off by answering the questions for which you have already located the keywords in the passage. Okay, now let's go ahead and start to answer this question. So here is the question. It says, which 2 of these advantages of online social networking are mentioned in reading passage 3? So once you have marked this keyword from the question, you're going to do the easy questions first. And what I would do is while I am looking for the answers to the easy questions, I'm going to be on the lookout for any language that talks about some kind of an advantage or a benefit. Okay? And if I find that language anywhere in the reading passage, I'm just going to mark it, and then I'm going to finish my easy questions, and then I'm going to return back to that part so that I can start answering these difficult questions at the end. And of course, I'm going to start off by answering the question for which I have already found the synonym language. Now, once you return back to these questions at the end, you can go ahead and mark the keywords from the answer choices as well. Especially if you have proper nouns, in that case, you can choose to mark the keywords from the answer choice. So I'm going to go ahead and mark these keywords from the answer choices just to show you, but do keep in mind that most of the times you will not really need to use any keywords from the answer choices. Okay? Most of the times you will only have to focus on the keywords from the question. So I'm just marking these keywords here in the answer choices just to show you if you were to mark the keywords in the answer choices, how would you do it? But most of the times you should not really be marking the keywords from the answer choice because there's no need to do so. So let's say that here we have these two paragraphs and our answer is going to be found in these two paragraphs. Notice that here we have paragraph A and here we have paragraph E. So the two answer choices are going to come from two different paragraphs. So what I would do is, while I am looking for the answers to the easy questions, I'm also going to be searching for any language that says anything about advantage. So let's say I'm scanning for my answer to the easy questions. While I'm scanning for my answer to the easy questions, I'm also looking for this keyword, advantage. Is there anything in here that talks about some sort of an advantage? And here it talks about how the weak tie contacts have exploded. It seems to be talking about how before it was difficult for us to maintain weak ties. Before this was difficult, but now we can. Now the number of weak tie contacts has exploded. Well, that sounds like an advantage. That is synonym language. It doesn't say anywhere the word advantage. We don't see that word anywhere. But still, this here is an example of an advantage. This is synonym language. So I'm pretty sure that I'm going to probably find my answer somewhere around here because right here I have located my synonym language for the keyword advantage. So this is probably going to be my matching sentence. So once I have located this area where it talks about the advantage, I'm going to mark this area. And after I finish my easy questions first, then I'm going to return back to this when I start to answer my difficult questions at the end. So when I return back to this area, because I know that it talks about advantage, now I'm going to start looking for the specific keywords from the answer choices. Now I am focusing on these keywords from the answer choices. Not before. First I'm looking for advantages, and once I have located that area, then I am looking for these keywords from the answer choices. So let's go ahead and see if we can find any keywords from the answer choices. Do we see anything here? Well, I see this phrase right here. It says number of weak tie contacts has exploded, has significantly increased. That's what that means. By the way, if you don't know what weak tie contacts means, that just means people who you're not friends with, but maybe they're acquaintances. Like you know them, but they're not best friends with you. They're not close family members or close friends. But still, you know them. Maybe they are co-workers, or maybe they are someone who you don't spend a lot of time with, but you do see them every now and then. So they're not very strong friends. They are what you can call weak tie contacts. You kind of know them. You don't completely know them, you kind of know them a little bit. So here we have synonym language for this part over here. It says, online socializing is an efficient way of keeping touch with a lot of people. So to keep in touch with a lot of people means that you can also keep in touch not just with your good friends, but also with your acquaintances, with your weak tie contacts. So the number of people with whom we are connected with has exploded. That is synonym language. So the correct answer here is going to be B. That is one of our correct answer choices. Let's look at the next correct answer choice. So the next answer choice is going to come from this paragraph. So again, what am I going to do? I'm going to first begin by looking for language that relates to some sort of an advantage. First, I'm looking for some sort of an advantage. Do I see anything here that could be an advantage or an example of an advantage? And here I see it's talking about our well-being. It's talking about how online social networking can have tangible effects on our well-being. Here it says, we need never feel alone. That's an advantage. Here it says, there's more of a safety net now. We feel safer. That is also an advantage. So here it talks about a bunch of different advantages. So now that I have located this area, here what I have is my matching sentence. This is my matching sentence. I know that I'm going to find my correct answer choice somewhere around here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to look for the specific keywords from the answer choices. So let's see if I can find any keywords or any synonym language from these answer choices. So what I see over here is it says we need never feel alone. We don't have to feel lonely anymore. Well, that is synonym language for this part over here. It can be reassuring to be part of an online social network. When something is reassuring, it means that you feel safer. You don't feel alone because there are other people there to comfort you, to support you. So that is synonym language. And the correct answer is going to be D. So those are our two correct answer choices, B and D. Now let us take a look at another question. Here we have the question that asks us about two disadvantages. Which two of these disadvantages of online social networking are mentioned in reading passage 3? So now what I'm going to do is, while I'm looking for my answers to the easy questions, I'm also going to be on the lookout for any language that talks about a disadvantage. And if I find that in my reading passage, I'm going to mark it, and then I'm going to return back to it at the end. So let's say that we have these two paragraphs for this question. We have paragraph B and paragraph F. So our two answer choices are going to come from these two different paragraphs. So what I'm going to do is, while I'm scanning for my answers to the easy questions first, I'm also going to be on the lookout for any language that talks about a disadvantage. So here, let's see if we can find anything related to disadvantage. So over here, we have the term inaccurate. So it's saying that what they could hear, for example, when people turn to social networks for news, when they're looking for trusted and relevant news, the information that they find can be inaccurate. This is a disadvantage. We don't see the word disadvantage, but this is an example of a disadvantage. That is synonym language. So in this area, we have found our matching sentence. So what I would do is I would simply mark this area. Maybe I would put a little arrow next to it when I am looking for my answers to the easy questions, and then I would return back to these difficult questions at the end. I would return back to this area where it talks about the disadvantage. And when I come back to this area, I know that it's going to talk about a disadvantage in this area. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to start scanning for keywords from my answer choices. So let's go ahead and see if we can find any keywords from our answer choices. Do we see anything? So over here we have the term information. So information is one of our keywords. And here we have the term inaccurate. That is the main disadvantage, that the news that people hear can be inaccurate. That term inaccurate is synonym language for unreliable. Unreliable. Something that you cannot trust. Something that can be wrong. Unreliable. So the correct answer choice, or one of the correct answer choices, is going to be the letter A. Now let's move on to the next paragraph. Again, I'm looking for language related to disadvantage. First, I want to find the area where it talks about a disadvantage. I want to locate that area first, and after I have located that area, then I'm going to be scanning for the keywords from my answer choices. So let's see if it talks about some sort of a disadvantage in this paragraph. Right here it says, we may have to give up some ability to show very limited glimpses of ourselves to others. It's basically saying that we have to learn to live a more transparent life. Okay? We have to live a more transparent life. We have to be more open with other people about what we're doing, about what's going on in our lives. Okay? So people are going to have access to more information about us. So in this area, it seems to be talking about a disadvantage. That is an example of a disadvantage, because that means that I have to give up my privacy. I have to be more transparent about what's happening in my life with other people. So here it talks about a disadvantage, and now that I have located this area, now I'm going to start looking for the keywords from my answer choices. Basically, I want to see what answer choice is going to be the best fit. So over here, it talks about how we have to now live a more transparent life. That is synonym language for lack of privacy. So using social network sites may result in a lack of privacy. So that is going to be our second disadvantage. So the correct answer choice is going to be E. So those are the two disadvantages, letter A and letter E. So I hope you have a better idea of how to answer this question type. And in the next two videos, we're going to be looking at practice questions for how to answer this question type. And we're going to be digging into more detail. So you'll get to see two different examples and get a better idea of how to really master this question type.